You feel it happening, don't you? That strange, unsettling shift in your chest when you think about him now. It's not the longing anymore. It's not the ache that used to consume you. It's something else entirely. Something that almost feels like distance. Like your heart is pulling away from the very person it once would have died to be close to. And it confuses you. Because the love is still there, you know it is, but something about the way you see him now has fundamentally changed. You look at him, whether in your mind or in those rare moments of actual contact, and instead of seeing the divine masculine you once worshipped, you see his flaws, his avoidance, his fear, his refusal to meet you. And for the first time, instead of making excuses for him, instead of holding space for his healing, instead of waiting patiently for him to rise, you feel something you never thought you would feel toward your twin flame. You feel irritated, disappointed, maybe even a little bit disgusted, and it terrifies you. Because if this is your twin, if this is the one your soul chose, why does being near his energy now feel more draining than nourishing? Why does his silence feel less like mystery and more like disrespect? Why does his inconsistency feel less like divine timing and more like emotional immaturity? You wonder if you're losing the connection. You wonder if you're becoming cold. You wonder if maybe you were wrong about everything. But beloved, let me tell you the truth. Your soul already knows. This dislike you're feeling, it's not the end of your journey. It's the beginning of your freedom. You're not falling out of love. You're falling out of illusion. And that shift, that uncomfortable, disorienting, sometimes painful shift, is the most sacred part of your entire twin flame journey. Because it means you finally stopped abandoning yourself for him. Before we go any further, I have to say this to you directly. What you are feeling right now, this shift from longing to distance, is not the same for every woman on this path. It is written into your exact birth chart, your exact timing, your soul contract with him. A twin flame union personal reading takes your name, date of birth, exact time of birth, and place of birth, and reads what is actually happening in your energy and his right now, and why this shift is arriving at this exact moment. You receive a personal audio reading and a full written report delivered straight to your inbox. The link is in the description. If you felt this exact shift, if you've experienced this strange dislike rising in your heart toward the masculine you once adored, I want you to know you are not alone and you are not broken. Drop a comment below and share where you are in this stage, or simply type, "I choose myself" to claim this frequency of sovereignty. And if these transmissions speak to your soul, subscribe so you continue receiving the guidance that is meant specifically for your awakening. Let's talk about what's really happening here. Because this stage, this moment when the divine feminine begins to feel resistance, irritation, even dislike toward her counterpart, this is not random. This is not you being petty or small or unspiritual. This is your soul's immune system activating. This is your inner wisdom finally saying enough. For how long have you carried this connection on your back? For how long have you been the one holding the vision, doing the inner work, believing in the union, while he ran, while he hid, while he chose fear over and over again? You've been patient, you've been understanding. You've made excuse after excuse for why he can't show up, why he can't communicate, why he can't choose you the way you've chosen him. You told yourself it's his wounded masculine. You told yourself he's just not awake yet. You told yourself that divine timing means you have to wait until he's ready, and all of that may be true. But here's the deeper truth. None of that means you have to keep sacrificing your peace, your worth, your emotional well-being while he figures it out. There comes a point in this journey when your soul looks at the imbalance and says no more, not because the love has died, but because you have finally remembered that love is not supposed to hurt this much. Love is not supposed to be this one-sided. Love is not supposed to require you to betray yourself just to keep the connection alive. And that remembering, that return to your own inner knowing, that is what causes the dislike. Because suddenly you're not looking at him through the lens of potential anymore. You're not seeing the version of him that exists in some distant future when he's healed and whole and ready. You're seeing him as he is right now. And right now, he's choosing fear. Right now, he's choosing avoidance. Right now, he's choosing to stay small. And your soul, which has expanded so much through this journey, which has grown and transformed and risen, your soul can no longer pretend that his current version is acceptable. Have you noticed how the things that used to make you sad about him now make you angry? How his silence used to make you worry, but now it just makes you roll your eyes? How his mixed signals used to give you hope, but now they just feel manipulative? It's not you becoming bitter. That's you becoming clear. You're finally seeing the truth without the filter of fantasy. You're finally acknowledging that a soul connection does not excuse bad behavior. That twin flame does not mean you have to tolerate being treated as an option. That destiny does not require you to wait forever for someone who refuses to do their own work. This dislike is your 3 days now. A respect coming back online. It's your boundaries reassembling themselves. It's your inner queen standing up and saying, I deserve better than this, even from my twin flame. And here's what makes this stage so powerful. When you stop accepting the old dynamic, when you stop making yourself smaller to accommodate his fear, when you stop pouring your energy into someone who isn't meeting you halfway, something shifts in the entire energetic field between you. Because for so long he's been comfortable, he's been able to run and know you'd still be there. He's been able to avoid and know you'd still hold space. He's been able to choose fear and know your love would remain unconditional. But now that comfort is gone. Now when he reaches for your energy, he doesn't find the same softness. He doesn't find the same endless patience. He doesn't find the same willingness to wait. And that absence, that energetic withdrawal, it shakes him in a way your presence never could. Let me take you inside his experience for a moment, because understanding what's happening for him will help you understand why your dislike is actually the catalyst for his awakening. The divine masculine, especially in the early and middle stages of the twin flame journey, operates from a place of deep, deep fear. And I'm not talking about surface fear. I'm talking about the kind of fear that lives in his bones, that was passed down through generations, that tells him vulnerability equals death. He feels the intensity of this connection just as much as you do. In fact, sometimes he feels it even more intensely because he has less practice with emotional depth, less capacity to hold that much feeling. And so when he feels the pull toward you, when he feels his heart opening, when he feels the walls he spent his entire life building starting to crack, his nervous system panics. It tells him he's in danger. It tells him he needs to run. It tells him that if he surrenders to this love, he will lose himself completely. So he runs. Not because he doesn't love you, but because he loves you so much it terrifies him. He avoids. Not because the connection isn't real, but because it's the most real thing he's ever felt and he doesn't know how to hold it. He chooses fear. Not because he's weak, but because facing this love would require him to face every wound, every pattern, every lie he's ever told himself about who he is and what he's capable of. And for a long time, your unconditional love actually enabled his fear, because he knew, on some level, that no matter how far he ran, you'd still be there. No matter how long he avoided, you'd still hold the vision. No matter how many times he disappointed you, you'd still forgive him. Your love was his safety net, and safety nets, while comforting, don't inspire growth. They inspire complacency. But now something has changed. Now when he tunes into your energy, whether consciously or unconsciously, he doesn't feel that same unconditional acceptance. He feels your disappointment. He feels your frustration. He feels your withdrawal. And for the first time, he feels the possibility of actually losing you. Not losing the connection, because on a soul level that's impossible, but losing access to you, losing the privilege of your energy, losing the comfort of knowing you'll always be there no matter what he does. And that possibility, that very real threat of loss, that's what finally breaks through his fear. Because suddenly the fear of losing you becomes greater than the fear of facing himself. Suddenly, staying in his comfort zone feels more dangerous than stepping into the unknown. Suddenly, he realizes that if he doesn't rise, if he doesn't do the work, if he doesn't choose courage over fear, he will lose the most important person his soul has ever known. This is why your dislike is so powerful. This is why this stage, as uncomfortable as it feels, is actually the most transformative part of the journey. Because your dislike removes his safety net. Your dislike forces him to confront the consequences of his choices. Your dislike makes him realize that unconditional love does not mean unconditional tolerance. And that realization is what catalyzes his awakening. He starts to look at himself with the same clarity you're now looking at him with. He starts to see his patterns, his avoidance, his fear. He starts to feel ashamed of how he's been showing up, or rather, how he hasn't been showing up. He starts to understand that the woman he's been taking for granted is not going to wait forever, and that understanding lights a fire under him that nothing else could. But let's come back to you, because this isn't just about him. This is about your liberation. This is about you finally choosing yourself after months or years of choosing him. This is about you reclaiming your power after giving it away in the name of unconditional love. And I want you to understand something crucial. This dislike you're feeling is not a character flaw. It's not evidence that you're not spiritual enough or evolved enough or loving enough. This dislike is evidence that you have finally developed the self-worth to recognize when something is not serving you, even if that something is your twin flame. You've spent so long in this journey trying to be the bigger person, trying to hold the higher vibration, trying to embody unconditional love no matter what, and those are all beautiful qualities. But somewhere along the way, you confused unconditional love with unconditional tolerance. You thought that being spiritual meant accepting unacceptable behavior. You thought that being evolved meant never setting boundaries. You thought that being the divine feminine meant constantly giving while receiving nothing in return. But beloved, that's not what the divine feminine is. The divine feminine is not a doormat. She is not endlessly patient with those who disrespect her. She is not soft and accommodating to those who take advantage of her softness. The true divine feminine is fierce. She is boundaried. She knows her worth and she does not negotiate it for anyone, not even her twin flame. And this stage you're in right now, this stage of dislike and disappointment and frustration, this is you stepping into that fierce feminine power. This is you remembering that you are not just the nurturer, you are also the protector. And right now, you are protecting yourself from a dynamic that was hurting you. You are protecting your energy from someone who was draining it. You are protecting your heart from someone who is not treating it with the reverence it deserves. And that protection, that boundary, that's not you being cold or closed off. That's you being wise. That's you being sovereign. That's you finally loving yourself as much as you've been loving him. Have you noticed how much lighter you feel since you stopped trying to make this work? Have you noticed how much more energy you have now that you're not constantly obsessing over him, analyzing his behavior, trying to decode his mixed signals? Have you noticed how much more present you are in your own life now that you're not living in a future fantasy of reunion? That lightness, that energy, that presence, that's what happens when you stop abandoning yourself. That's what happens when you stop making someone else the center of your universe and remember that you are the center of your own. And this shift, this return to self, this is what makes reunion possible. Not because you're playing games or trying to manipulate him into coming back, but because you can't have true union when one person is whole and the other is still fragmented. You can't have sacred partnership when one person is standing in their power and the other is still on their knees begging for crumbs. Reunion requires two sovereign beings, two people who have done their inner work, two people who have healed their wounds, two people who have remembered their worth. And for the longest time, you were doing all the work while he stayed stuck in his patterns. But now, by choosing yourself, by setting boundaries, by allowing yourself to feel this dislike instead of suppressing it, you're forcing the dynamic to shift. You're forcing him to either rise to meet you or release you, and either way you win. Because either you get the partnership you deserve with a man who has finally done his work, or you get your freedom and your peace. And both of those outcomes are infinitely better than what you had before, which was a one-sided connection that was slowly draining your life force. Let's talk about what's happening energetically, because there's a sacred mechanism at play here that you need to understand. In the twin flame dynamic, The divine feminine typically awakens first. She's the one who recognizes the connection. She's the one who starts doing the inner work. She's the one who begins to embody higher frequencies of love, compassion, forgiveness. And for a while, this creates an energetic imbalance. She's vibrating at a higher frequency while he's still stuck in lower frequencies of fear, control, avoidance. And because of the nature of the twin flame connection, because your souls are energetically linked, he can actually feel her higher frequency. He can access it, draw from it, even benefit from it, without having to do any of his own work to get there. It's like he's plugged into her energy and using it as a crutch. But here's what happens. When the divine feminine starts to feel dislike, when she starts to pull her energy back, when she starts to set boundaries, she unplugs him. She cuts off his access to her high frequency. And suddenly, he's forced to feel his own lower frequency without her energy to buffer it. Suddenly, he's sitting in his own fear, his own pain, his own emptiness. And it's uncomfortable. It's deeply, deeply uncomfortable because he's been using her light to avoid facing his own darkness. He's been using her love to avoid feeling his own lack of self-love. He's been using her presence to avoid confronting his own absence. And now that she's withdrawn, now that she's no longer available as his emotional crutch, he has no choice but to face himself. He has no choice but to do his own inner work. He has no choice but to raise his own frequency if he wants to reconnect with her. This is the sacred purpose of your dislike. This is why it's not a mistake or a failure. It's a necessary part of the journey. Because as long as you are making it easy for him, as long as you are doing the emotional labor for both of you, as long as you are holding the connection together through sheer force of will, he had no incentive to change. But now he has every incentive. Now his comfort depends on his growth. Now his access to you depends on his willingness to face himself. Now reunion depends on him finally stepping into the work you've been doing all along. And that's exactly as it should be. Because you cannot carry him into union, he has to walk there himself. I want you to understand that this dislike is also protecting you from settling for a false union. Because here's what would have happened if you had continued in the old dynamic. Eventually, he would have come back. Not because he'd healed or grown or done his work, but because he missed the comfort of your energy. He would have come back with sweet words and promises and just enough effort to pull you back in. And you, because you love him, because you've been waiting for him, because you so desperately want this to work, you would have accepted him. You would have ignored the fact that nothing fundamental had changed. You would have convinced yourself that this time would be different, and for a little while, it might have felt good. It might have felt like progress, but eventually the same patterns would have emerged, the same avoidance, the same fear, the same refusal to truly meet you. Because he hadn't actually transformed. He had just temporarily stepped out of his comfort zone, and the moment things felt too intense again, he would have retreated right back into it. But now, because you've developed this dislike, because you've raised your standards, because you've remembered your worth, you won't accept that false reunion. You won't settle for the version of him that hasn't done the work. You won't be swayed by temporary effort or empty promises. You will only accept the real thing, the true union, the partnership where both people are whole, healed, and showing up fully. And that discernment, that clarity, that's the gift of this stage. Your dislike has become your protection against settling. It's become your inner compass pointing you toward what you truly deserve. Now let's talk about what this looks like in practical terms, because I want you to recognize the signs that this shift is happening. You'll know you're in this stage when you stop checking his social media obsessively, when you stop analyzing every little interaction looking for hidden meaning, when you stop asking your friends and tarot readers and psychics when he's coming back, when you stop feeling that desperate need to know what he's thinking, what he's feeling, whether he still cares. You'll know you're in this stage when his name pops up, and instead of your heart racing, you feel nothing. Or maybe you feel mild annoyance. When you imagine him reaching out and instead of excitement, you feel dread, because you know that unless he's fundamentally changed, unless he's done real work, Any contact from him will just be more of the same old pattern. And you're tired of that pattern. You're so tired of it that you'd rather have silence than deal with his half-hearted attempts at connection. You'll know you're in this stage when you start noticing other men. Not because you're trying to make him jealous or move on out of spite, but because your energy is no longer completely tied up in him. You have space now. Space to see other possibilities. Space to recognize that there are men out there who would treat you well, who would choose you clearly, who would show up consistently. And while you might not be ready to pursue anything with anyone else, the simple fact that you can see these other options, that you're not completely blind to every man who isn't him, that's a sign of your healing. That's a sign that he no longer has a monopoly on your heart. You'll know you're in this stage when you start investing in yourself again. When you start pursuing your passions, your goals, your dreams, not as a distraction from missing him, but because you genuinely care about your own life again. When you start making plans for your future that don't include him. When you start building a life that feels full and rich and meaningful all on its own. When you realize that you don't need him to be happy. You don't need reunion to feel complete. You are already complete. And if he ever does his work and shows up as the man you deserve, great. He can join you in the beautiful life you've already created. But you're not putting your life on hold waiting for that to happen. You have probably been trying to keep track of all of this in your head. The exact week his silence stopped hurting and started irritating you instead. The month you finally stopped checking his social media. The dream that felt different from all the others that came before it. Trying to hold all of it in memory, and memory has a way of convincing you that nothing has changed even when everything has. A twin flame journey tracker and progress workbook exists for exactly this gap. A place to actually document your stages, your shifts, your own signals of growth, so you can see the proof of how far you have come in your own handwriting instead of just wondering if you imagined it. You are not losing the connection. You are finally able to prove to yourself how much you have grown. And here's what's happening for him during this time, because his experience is shifting too. He's starting to feel your absence in a way he never has before. It's not just that you're not reaching out, because there have probably been periods of no contact before. It's that your energy has fundamentally shifted. He can feel, even if he can't articulate it, that you're no longer waiting for him. He can sense that you're no longer holding space for him in the same way. He can feel that the door, while maybe not completely closed, is no longer wide open, and this terrifies him. Because on some level, even when he was running, even when he was avoiding, he always knew you were there. You were his constant, his anchor, his home base, and now that security is gone, he starts having dreams about you. Intense, vivid dreams where you're together, or where you're walking away, or where he's chasing you and can't catch you. He starts seeing signs and synchronicities everywhere. Your name, numbers that remind him of you, songs that make him think of you. The universe is basically screaming at him to wake up, to pay attention, to do something before it's too late. He starts feeling this urgency that he can't explain, this sense that time is running out, that if he doesn't act soon, he's going to lose something precious. And he's right. He is going to lose something precious. He's going to lose access to you if he doesn't rise. He might start reaching out in small ways, liking your social media posts, watching your stories, sending you random memes or songs with no real context. And here's where your dislike serves you. Because instead of reading into these breadcrumbs, instead of getting your hopes up, instead of responding with enthusiasm, you either ignore them completely or respond with polite disinterest. And that response, or lack thereof, sends him a clear message. The old games don't work anymore. Breadcrumbs are not enough. If he wants back in your life, he's going to have to show up for real. He's going to have to be vulnerable. He's going to have to do the work. And this is where the real transformation begins for him, because he realizes that he can't charm his way back in. He can't use spiritual language and twin flame concepts to bypass actual accountability. He can't show up for a week or a month and then disappear again. You've changed the rules, you've raised the bar. And if he wants to meet you, he has to actually become the man worthy of meeting you. This might push him into a dark night of the soul, a period where he has to confront everything he's been avoiding: his childhood wounds, his relationship with his mother, his fear of intimacy, his patterns of self-sabotage. All the shadow work he's been running from, he now has to face, because the pain of facing it has finally become less than the pain of losing you. And as he does this work, as he starts to heal and grow and transform, something beautiful happens. He starts to become the man you always saw in him. Not because you convinced him or fixed him or loved him into it, but because he chose it for himself. Because he finally understood that becoming that man is the only way to have the love his soul craves. And this version of him, this healed, conscious, emotionally available version, this is the version that can actually meet you in union. This is the version that can handle your intensity. This is the version that won't run from your love. This is the version that's been waiting to emerge all along. But here's the key. Even as he transforms, even as he does his work, even as he becomes ready for reunion, you have to maintain your boundaries. You have to trust your dislike. You have to let his actions speak louder than his words. Because it's easy to say he's changed. It's easy to make promises. It's easy to have temporary breakthroughs. What matters is sustained change. What matters is consistent action. What matters is him showing up day after day, week after week, month after month, proving through his choices that he's truly different. And your dislike, your healthy skepticism, your refusal to settle, that's what ensures you don't accept anything less than his full transformation. This is the final stage before reunion, beloved. This is where everything you've been through, all the pain and the waiting and the growth, this is where it all comes together. But it doesn't come together through you softening your boundaries. It doesn't come together through you going back to the old dynamic. It comes together through you standing firm in your worth, through you maintaining your standards, through you choosing yourself over and over again until he finally rises to meet you. And when he does, when he finally shows up as the man you always knew he could be, you'll be so grateful that you didn't settle. You'll be so grateful that you honored your dislike. You'll be so grateful that you trusted yourself enough to wait for the real thing. So, beloved, let this be your reminder. You are not becoming cold. You are becoming clear. You are not losing love. You are losing tolerance for anything that dishonors that love. You are not pushing him away. You are calling him higher. And if he cannot rise to meet that call, then he was never meant to stand beside you in union. Your dislike is not the end of your journey. It is the purification of it. It is the stage where everything false burns away and only truth remains. It is the moment where you stop waiting for him to complete you and realize you are always whole. It is the threshold between the fantasy of what could be and the reality of what will be. Ask yourself one final time, am I still making excuses for behavior that doesn't match the love I deserve? Am I still waiting for potential while ignoring reality? Or have I finally given myself permission to feel what I feel? To want what I want, to demand what I deserve? Because the moment you give yourself that permission, the moment you honor your dislike instead of suppressing it, everything shifts. The energy between you transforms. The dynamic rebalances. And reunion stops being something you chase and becomes something you allow, but only on terms that honor both of you fully. Tell me in the comments, have you felt this shift? Have you experienced this strange dislike rising toward the masculine you once adored? What changed in you when you finally chose yourself? Your story may be exactly what another soul needs to hear today. Because we're all walking each other home, and sometimes the most powerful medicine is knowing we're not alone in the journey.